Hello and welcome back everyone to Adobe Live from the sofa. I see a lot of you already in the chat. That's great. Hi everyone. If you do have questions, pop them in there. Today we have Kelly Anna with us. Welcome Kelly, how are you?
Good. I'm sat at home like everyone else.
Like everyone else, everybody on their sofa.
And of course we have Rufus, Rufus who brought Adobe Live to the UK.
Hey everyone. Yeah, so I'm super happy to see that, on week 2 of our daily live streams here from the sofa, there's still so many people watching and, people returning into the chat. And this is exactly what I wanted to achieve with these daily streams, is to have this community like growing and coming together and be creative together and, and inviting these great guests like Kelly Anna today, like hopefully to give you inspiration to try out new things. And so that we can all get to, through that weird time together as a community. So I see that Kirsty's here, Sean, Keith, James, Andrew, Caroline, Catherine, Anthony, Matthew, Andreas, Izara, Mugesh from India. Hello. It must be kind of later in the day. Yeah, it's okay. And you have that half-hour thing in India, right? So it's like +5.5, right? And Jackie and Kirsty and everybody's here. So great to see that you're back. There's already quite a few watching. And like I said, today, let's get inspired by Kelly Anna. And let's begin, finding out who you are, Kelly Anna. What do you do?
Hi, guys.
And how do you do?
How do I do? I'm all right. staying upbeat with memes.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much read about 5 memes a day. So yeah, I'm good. So I'm Kelly Anna, and I'm an artist currently living in London. I work on everything from product to murals, trainers, lots of different things. But I started out actually as a print designer, and then kind of over the years started to work my way into kind of getting out and doing my own thing, which is what I do now. So yeah.
So you say you were a print designer. So did you do like the normal kind of communication design thing, and then
do you know what? It was weird because my journey from how I got to how I got here was literally the most unsimple way of getting. Literally, I mean, I did all of the things. I did it all wrong, but I'm so glad I did, because I think the route I chose, kind of because I had no idea what I was doing at so many moments. It's actually kind of made it better for me because I have so much more experience now in like different areas. So like, for example, I did the national diploma in art and design, and then I had always had this interest in fashion, because so when I grew up, my dad was an artist, or is an artist, and we used to kind of sketch together. And I grew up as a dancer, as a ballroom and Latin dancer, which everyone always finds really weird. my whole family are ballroom and Latin dancers, and so my dad would kind of like sketch with me, and then I would kind of practice at these competitions. So I'd go along and I'd watch all the dancers, sketch them, basically like live sketching these competitions. And then I did that for years and years when I was a kid, and kind of went through, teenager life and got into fashion. So I started sketching a lot of fashion, and decided that was going to be my route. I was going to be this fashion designer. So I moved to London and I did a fashion design course, and really quickly realized I was shit at fashion design because I can't pattern cut. So I basically did a year, and then I was like, oh my God, I need to leave because I literally can't pattern cut. So I basically freaked out. and then ended up on a fashion illustration course. So yeah, and then I studied fashion illustration. But whilst I was there, I won a competition to live illustrate at Fashion Week. So I would sit front row and sketch all the looks coming down the catwalk. And that's kind of the route of how I kind of got into print design, because I just had this fascination. Like I was absolutely obsessed with the print, like all of the print that I kept seeing. Because like every collection had their print of the collection, which kind of explained what the collection was about. And that just really stuck out to me. So that's kind of how I fell into print design. And then yeah, that was a long route.
Yeah. but yeah, hey, you know, it's a long and winding road.
It is.
But then you discovered what it is you really wanted to do, and how did that happen?
No, so basically, I got into print design. So I took my first job out of uni as a print designer in this like really small studio. And when I actually got this job, I think it was to do their social media or something, but this was at the very start, so like Instagram. But when I got there, I was like, well, this is boring. I want to do print. So I just started kind of like developing my own prints on the side and like shoving it in his face and being like, let me be a print designer. And it worked somehow, and I ended up being a print designer, and then worked my way up to doing head of print and being head of print, and had a little team, which was really nice. And during that time, I was working on like, you know, music videos, tours, because we were working on apparel, obviously. So we kind of I ended up working on like, you know, not costumes, but kind of stage outfits and things. And that time was actually really exciting, because it kind of showed me how to take an artwork and kind of get it from sketchbook all the way through to like a finished product, like apparel, clothing. And I think that has taught me a lot in my process today of like how you get something from sketchbook to a finished product, which for me is really exciting. I think that's the most exciting part of what I do, is you know, seeing something from sketch to something that's kind of tangible, and you know, like a mural or trainers, or you know, something that people can use and take with them. Yeah.
So Jackie's asking, do you mean print for textiles? No.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
No, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So the way it is that it was textiles, it was screen print. It depended what I was working on. So it could have been a graphic print for a jumper, or it could have been an all over textile for a dress, for example. One thing I'll always say to anyone who wants to be a print designer, I would always say don't go into it being there's a very like specific way that textile designers work, and it's to do an artwork and then some reason shrink it down and duplicate the artwork, which to me is really boring. So I think it's like the textbook thing to do. But the way I used to work was to kind of get an artwork, and your artwork becomes this kind of, you have to use your artwork in the best way you have to look at how you can kind of change the composition of it onto a garment, and it almost, your garment has to be a canvas, and look at your garment as different sections. So the sleeve is one section, the mid body is another, and that's kind of always how I worked, instead of just shrinking the artwork and duplicating it. I think
do you still have examples of your textile designs?
Oh god, let me have a look. Do you know what, I don't think I have it on this computer. Maybe. Okay. Hold on. I actually uploaded some. I might send it to my computer now. Hold on.
I know what you mean. I had that too. I did a diploma in digital fashion design in Spain, and we mainly just did Illustrator swatches all the time. Like out of every pattern we created, we did swatches, and then we just filled the whole figure that we did.
Yeah. So, it's just a really like it's just what you get taught. But because I never studied textile design, I think I kind of went in with I just had no idea what I was doing, and I just wanted to be a print designer. So I kind of just making my own rules. But I think that sometimes when you don't study something, actually you come in stronger, and you come in with a better, kind of more of an open mind, because then you're not kind of restricted to what you've learned. You're literally just coming in because you've got passion for it, and you're like, I'm going to do it this way. And that's kind of how I learned, really. I'm trying to look for some prints. Maybe I'll try and find some throughout. I'll show you this one. God, these are so long ago. Just trying to send it to the computer now.
How long is so long ago for you?
So this was, God, my first job, when was it? This would have been about 8 years ago. So these are like weird.
Did you move from textile straight to paper or wall paintings, or what was your jump?
So I basically these are just some random ones I found on my phone the other day. This was for sorry, I can't remember even. That was for a guy. I can't remember his name. Yeah, this is Little Sims here. And what was that? I think I can't remember. But I actually I don't have many on my on this computer. Actually, it's all on my old computer. Sorry, what was the question you asked? I zoned out there.
How did you make the move from textile to print on paper or walls? I know you painted.
So I actually after I'd done like a few, like 3-4 years in apparel design, I then got really obsessed with this shoe designer called Sophia Webster. She was doing like these insane shoes. Let me try and find. This was, so this is like, oops. She was doing like these in like crazy shoes. And I became obsessed with like the idea of like putting artwork and graphics on shoes. So I ended up applying for a job there as the print designer and got it. So then I started working in footwear. I'm just trying to show you some pieces. Where is that? Maybe it's again.
One too many ones. Yep.
Yeah. So these ones here are actually ones I did years ago. But yeah, so I went into shoe design, and then whilst I was there, that's when I really started to get the itch that I wanted to do my own thing. And I'd kind of had all this experience in, print design for apparel and then footwear. And I just knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I just didn't know how to get there. So I was pretty much working, I was doing 4 days a week there. And I was doing 5. And then I actually went to them and I was like, look, guys, I really wanted to start pushing my own thing. Is there any way I can kind of drop down to 4 days a week? And luckily I'd done a good few years there, so they kind of trusted me, and they allowed me to do that, which then freed up some time for then that I could start doing my own stuff again. And basically for the following 2 years that I was there, I started just working on my own stuff on, like, in the evenings, on the weekends, pretty much any time that I wasn't exhausted from working. Because, you know, when you've been at the studio all day, you're staring at your computer 24/7, and then you get home, you're like you just want to chill. But it was kind of that I had so much drive just to get out and do my own thing that it kind of, that didn't really matter. I just needed to get out. So yeah, I pretty much spent about 2 years just building up my work again, and then finally had the confidence. I was like drip feeding some of my work out, because I didn't used to share my work. I was just like, I didn't have enough confidence to do that.
So how long did it take to start having that confidence?
I was like sharing little bits here and there, but you know, like this was God, for like three and a half, maybe 4 years ago. No, 3.5 years ago. And like I was following all my favorite artists and illustrators, and you know, like you're looking at other people's work, you're like, oh my God, how do you get to this? Like, how do you get to that part? So I was like, well, no one's gonna see it if I don't put it out there. So I just started drip feeding it out and seeing what the response was. And at the time, I'd get like 11 likes. But it was kind of I just liked what I was doing, so I was just excited to share it anyway. And then I always say this: you never know who's watching, because a year into me of like starting to share my stuff, I got my first commission, which was with Nike. Because they
well, that's work. Just, you know, like, got my first commission with Nike, you know?
But that's the thing, you don't know who's watching you.
Totally.
And it doesn't matter. Like, now I realize, like, going into a lot of these brands and you know, working with lots of different people, like, a lot of the time they'll have people on their mood boards, or people that it's not about your following or all the time. It's about, like, someone will literally find your post and be like, oh, that's sick, and save it on their phone.
Because that's actually a question that, you know, that comes up very frequently also among the community here, is, you know, how do you start? How do you you know, get to that certain level where people start paying attention? And and you know, and also with you, I mean, the answer is always persistence, you know, like, just do it and like start sharing. And
I know it sounds so cliche, and it is cliche,
right?
but it is. But there's a reason for that, and it's because, you know, because it can take years. Like I do always say this as well. Like, for some people, they come out of uni and they hit the jackpot, and they're right place, right time, talent, all that merged into one. But for a lot of people, for me myself, like, it can take years. Also, if you're not in the position, like I wasn't in the position, like I moved to London, I'd come out of uni, I didn't have family that I could stay with, so I had to pay my rent, I had to find a job. It wasn't just, you know, I couldn't just come out of uni and wing it for a couple of months. I had to pay my rent. So you know, I hate when people get disheartened by the fact that, because a lot of students always say to me, they're like, oh my God, you know, they get upset because they're a year out of uni and haven't made it yet. And it's like, don't expect just to make it in a year or 2 or 3. Like, give yourself some time, because as well, give yourself some exploration time. Like, uni is one thing, you've learned some skills, but go out and get some work in studios, like learn what the process is. Like, if you want to be an illustrator, go out and learn how brands speak to illustrators, how you can kind of negotiate different different projects. That's one thing actually that I learned a lot of when I was at Sophia Webster, is I used to talk a lot with artists and photographers, and I got used to the language that they were kind of using. So, you know, now when I speak to clients and brands, I understand that language, and But I wouldn't have known that if I'd just gone out freelance. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And like I always say, like I too started, doing graphic design for the local pub and like menus and business cards for tattoo artists and things like that. And then, like start building your things, like working on personal projects, working on side projects, working on the things you really want to do. And then one thing leads, again, cliche, but one thing leads to another.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes people say about personal projects, like it doesn't matter, but actually personal projects are always, when a brand or a client comes to me, it's so rare that they'll put in, like, because they put their little project briefs together and they'll send that over. And it's so rare that they'll put in work that I've done with other clients or brands. It's always work that they've picked from my Instagram or my website that I've done in my own time. It's so rare that it's other, there are reasons for that, but also it just shows that, if you are doing your own stuff, that's because also it's not contaminated. It's literally coming from you. So I think that helps a lot to have a lot of personal projects on the side, and they're fun as well because no one's telling you to change the color.
Rebecca is asking, what brands have you collaborated with? Like you mentioned Nike.
Yeah, so lots. Oh god, I always get really nervous when people ask me. Let me go into
well, I think on your website it has a list.
There's a list here of people I've worked with. Yeah, that I've done Nike Women, Nike NFL, Nike Running, Penguin, Lego. Oh, I'll show you actually. I did my first Penguin cover last year. This is actually here. It was so weird. So this is my first book.
Beautiful.
I did. It was weird because my agency, who are Jelly London, they at the start of the year they were like, "Oh, write down, all the brands you kind of want to work with," and so I kind of wrote a list of who were like my top that I wanted to work with, and I wrote down Penguin, and literally the next week they got in touch. And I actually think that's another really good thing to do, is making sure that doing the work's one thing, but another thing is to actually like have goals of like who it is you want to be working with, because I think that often helps to kind of understand who you are as an artist or illustrator and understand what you want to be doing, and who you want to be working with. A lot of what I do is kind of catered towards, like I do a lot of work with sports, and hence probably why I'm working with Nike, because for me it's my passion, and I think that's really important for artists and illustrators to find out what your passion is, and kind of work.
And Hannah's asking, what inspires you to create these illustrations? What's your where does it come from?
Do you know what? I think it's I've always had an obsession with art, anything creative. When I was younger, I was always like making something, and my dad being an artist as well, I was like surrounded by it. But I absolutely love I love color, and I love seeing artwork become something like that's why I'm obsessed with putting your artwork onto product. I have an itch to make something every day. That sounds really cheesy, but it's true. I was just showing these guys earlier, I'm literally finding little bits of wood board in my house that I can paint because I've got nothing else to paint on. But yeah, I'm like anything. I think it's quite hard not to be inspired, especially when you're on Instagram and you're on all, that you see so much out there. And you're like, oh my God, I want to be a part of this kind of you know, this scene of like people just creating all the time. It's exciting, although intimidating sometimes.
Yeah.
Thomas is asking which software you're using.
So usually my process, if I'm doing it for a project, I'm not painting for myself. The process usually is an A3 sketchbook or an A2, because I can't work small. I have to work quite large. An A1 if I've got space. And then from that, I'll transfer it to my iPad, so I can get the kind of colour it all in. And then from that, I'll transfer to either Illustrator or Photoshop. And that's usually if I don't have time, because a lot of the time with any project that I get in, for some reason I have no time, and they'll be like, oh, can we have that in a day? And we're like, yeah,
right.
So yeah, that's usually my process.
But I think, you know, what the point you make about the big paper is super important, because that's what I've always been telling my students as well, is that, you know, don't draw on small artboards, like, because small artboards make small ideas. And therefore, the bigger the paper, the bigger the movements you can make. And this actually shows in your work as well, is that it's big movements, right? It's big curvy lines and things that you can easily do on a bigger sheet of paper. So my advice is always like, go as big as you can. And you mentioned, if I can't have the space, A1, you know, let's do it.
Exactly. My dad always taught me, my dad's really, really impatient. And when he was younger, well, when I was younger, and he'd teach me, he literally, if I was like going in really close and trying to be really particular with my lines, he'd literally rip the paper away and tell me to start again. Like, he was so impatient, but he taught me to draw from my elbows, not my fingers. And so I think that's where that emotion comes from. But that's one thing he taught that's always kind of stuck with me. But I think it is true, working bigger is I think it's just a lot more freeing as well. But it depends what your work style is. If you're very intricate, that's also beautiful, and it's a different art form. But for me, especially with my work, it's definitely bigger is better.
So Isabella says, these talks are so inspiring. Thank you so much for creating this space. Well, thank you everyone in the chat for being here, because, you know, of course, this Adobe Live from the Sofa was created with you in mind, and also artists from the UK. So I think this is a great opportunity in these days that we're, you know, closely together here in our little screens, you know, to share and to learn from others, and also see, you know, that, like Jonathan says, how amazing how these personal projects are a running theme for guests on these Adobe Live shows. So he must do some. Absolutely, Jonathan. I think personal projects is, you know, what gets your imagination flowing and your creativity and really the things that you want to do. And, you know, like Kelly, you mentioned that too. You know, when you started posting things, the things you like, you know, people actually get inspired by them, and then they want something similar. So one thing that is recurring also in the community is like, what do I put in my portfolio? And I always say, don't put everything. Like, just put the things you would want to do again. Okay, so. And don't mix photography, illustration, graphic design, and UX, UI all together. No, because that, as somebody who's looking for talent, that would confuse me. I mean, what does that person do? And so be very precise in what it is you want to do. And then suddenly, you know, maybe one day Nike will call you and say, hey, can you do that for us? And I was like, yeah, of course.
But also, I think it's going back to that, knowing what your core passion is. Like, from the very beginning, don't ask yourself, what should I put in my portfolio? Start from that very, very, very core question, that core belief or core passion. Like, what is your passion? Do you like Lego? Do you like, think about all the things that you love. Is it sports? Is it, you know, something like, think of it in that way. And then you think, what do I love doing? Do I love painting? Do I love ceramics? Do I love, you know, animation? Just every time building it down. And then by the time you get to things that you're putting in your portfolio, it's things that you genuinely love and that you genuinely love doing. Because there's literally no point in putting, say you've done an animation because you think that you should have a bit of animation in your portfolio, but you don't actually enjoy it that much. That is pointless, because then you're going to get, you might get a few jobs, but yeah, again, a lot of people will get confused and be like, what are you? I said, there's one I always put up in my
who
in my
are
talk.
you?
I always get put this up in my talks, is if you want to be a mural artist, go and paint some murals. And for me it's that simple. Like, you have the choice to, we're really lucky now because we have our own platforms to show, and if I think you've got that choice, if you want to be a ceramicist or a painter, you've got that choice to tell people that's what you are. No one decides who you are. You've got to go out and be like, I'm going to let people know what I am, and I'm going to let people know what I do. And as you know, as soon as you start making that very clear, people catch on to it. Like I always say, like I did, like, when was it, 2 years ago now, I did my first solo exhibition, and I had never painted a mural before, and I was like seeing all my favorite artists like painting these big pieces, and I was like, how do I do that? So I decided on my first exhibition to do 5 murals, which was literally the worst idea I've ever had, because it was awful. I'd never painted it. I had 3 days, and I literally had to rope in all my, like, all these amazing assistants and helpers to paint these murals, and we were like painting on these brick walls that were just like crumbling. And then, but after that we got it done, and then after that I've done, like, I think I did my 19th mural in, just before we got into lockdown. I did my 19th in Le Mans in France. So I think as soon as you start showing people that that's what you kind of, you know, you want to do, then people will be like, oh, she does murals, I'll ask her. So I'll show you some of that mural I did. So this one was supposed to be on a wall, but because of the space, they decided, and they wanted to put it onto canvas. So they decided they wanted 8 huge canvases. So we ended up having to split the artwork. I'll show you. So you can't see it, but these bits here are individual canvases. So each canvas, I think, was like 2 meters by, I can't remember how big. But it was such a challenge, because having to line, because we didn't have the space either, we had to line each one up and just hope that it fit. But anyway, we got it done, and it was fun. But painting onto canvas on separate canvases, and then we had to paint each of the bottoms and lefts of them as well. So that's but it was fun.
So why do you think they suddenly asked you to do it on canvas instead of on the wall? They suddenly wanted it portable?
It yeah, and it was literally just a space thing, I think, because of the logistics of where it was. It was a space thing, so we ended up painting onto canvas. But yeah, it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. But I'll show you. I did just before that as well. I did a piece for Mother, who are an advertising firm in London. So I did this piece. It was called Mothers, and it was kind of celebrating. It was celebrating all of the different ways that kind of women can, you know, become pregnant, and obviously because I'm pregnant myself, so it was just a really nice project to work on. it was weird because when I got the project, I had no idea that I was having a baby, and then literally found out through the process. So it became this whole new project for me, and it was just really inspiring. And each figure represents what motherhood means to me, from like strength, security, everything.
Yeah, so there was so Jackie says, my new break from the kids, these Adobe live streams. Well, that's good. I'm glad you can have a break and look at these at our live streams from the sofa. And Catherine, to that point, I mean, you have an example here. Catherine is asking, do you ever incorporate typography or calligraphy into your designs? And in this case, yes. Yeah.
I absolutely love working with typeface and different font, different letters, because for me it's just another shape to work with. Because with a lot of my figures, I kind of always incorporate the figures like intertwined with shape, and letters are just a different shape. So for me, it's just always really fun to kind of break up letter shapes and use it that way, which is really fun. So yeah.
We had
so again, I guess
earlier asking, how did you find your style?
So do you know, that is the question I always get. It's quite, but I suppose every illustrator gets that. It's weird because when I was growing up, so obviously me and my dad were obsessed with Matisse and Hockney, and we had a lot of it around the house. And I think that kind of block graphic figure, just anything with color and just something blocky, I'm obsessed with it. And whilst I was doing, the live illustration and kind of sketching, dancing, and because I grew up a gymnast as well and a dancer, so I think movement for me is probably the most important part of what I do. It's kind of, I think, kind of intertwining kind of that movement and energy. I think also because I was going to be a dancer, I before I went to art school, that's what I chose to do. I was like, I want to be a dancer. But because I went to art school, I was like, actually, I want to be an artist. I think that kind of yearning to be a dancer kind of does come across a lot in my work, because I always feel like it has to have movement and it has to have energy. And I hope that comes across anyway.
It does.
Definitely does.
Sergio was asking, hi from Spain, is it difficult to work with a London agency?
Difficult to work with a London agency? No, not really. I mean, no, I don't think so. I guess it depends on how you work. If you've got an agent, how well you work together. My agency are really amazing. They're I think it's a lot to do with how you are as friends as well. I think like I'd always go to them to ask advice and things like that. So I think it's really important to get on very well with your agency. But yeah.
So when did you move to? I mean, when did you make the decision to have an agent represent you?
I had no idea, because I didn't ever set out to be like an illustrator, or I never knew. I didn't study illustration like proper illustration, so I didn't understand the route of even having an agent. I was so new to. I was coming from print design, working in footwear, so I had no idea that it was a thing to even have an agent. I've literally learned a lot of what I've learned in the last 3 years. There's so much I didn't know, and then it was a job I was working on for Moleskine in Milan, and an agency back then called Matches had actually gotten me the job. And then whilst I was there, they asked if I wanted to come on with them, and I was like, yeah, okay. Didn't really think. I was just like, yeah, okay. And then I was with them for about I think for about a year, and then I got then I went with Jelly, and so I think that it's not. I think it's important to have an agent because they have your back a lot of the time when sometimes you don't have the confidence to talk to clients and be like, no, this is what I am charging. But I think that comes with years of practice of learning what you are really happy to do the work for, understanding, like negotiating prices and looking over contracts. But I don't think I think if you're starting out, don't focus so heavily on that. Just focus right now on getting your work together and just really enjoying creating work that you love, and then over time things will fall into place, and you can start to look for an agent if you feel confident enough with your work. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Absolutely. No, definitely, because that's a question that comes up frequently also in the chat, is like, do you have an agent, or are you doing this or doing that? And it's always fascinating to know the various ways that you suddenly have like support from an agency, or many times it's actually agencies who find you and ask you, just like happened to you. And I think but that only happens when you have when you share your work and you share your style.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're focusing too heavily on getting an agent, but you're not kind of just focusing on your work, which is the most important thing, your priorities are off, and you need to be focusing on getting a portfolio together that is really strong and something that you're enjoying doing, and people will find it eventually. If you've got all of those things coming into play, you've got your talent, you've got your drive, you've got your passion, like if all of those are coming into one, and also confidence, making sure that you have real confidence, because a lot of artists, a lot of illustrators struggle with this. I struggled with it for a long time and still do,
with the imposter syndrome and all of these things.
Horrible wobbles that we all get. I literally this weekend I had the biggest cry because I was just like, oh my god, my work's so shit. I literally and my partner was just like, oh my god, calm down. It's so dramatic. But I think we're just all like that. It's just that creative that we all have those wobbles.
I think this is something that I called like almost like delusional paranoia. Suddenly you wake up one morning and say, oh my god, why am I even doing this?
Why am I even doing this?
Untalented, and there's so many more people more talented than me, and just give up, Rufus, and go garden.
Go be a gardener. Yeah, it's so funny. But
I'm not saying that gardening is not creative and it's beautiful, but like I was just throwing something there. Okay, so if there's any gardener in the audience here, don't be offended. I didn't want to
wish I could be a gardener.
I think this morning I had this thought. There were police horses riding by my balcony, and I was thinking, that's probably a nice job at the moment. You can ride a horse all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Rufus. But just when you see something, it's like that must be nice at the moment to just ride a horse all day instead of sitting here on the floor running Adobe Live. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, so Jackie said it's so reassuring that this happens to everyone, and Catherine also, Rufus, you're bang on the nail, so true. Yeah, but well, you see, this is one thing that I find fascinating with these, with these conversations that we have with other creatives and with you, the community, is that in the end, we all go through the same struggles. We all go through the same, delusional paranoia, and wake up in the morning and think, oh God, no, what am I doing?
It's just fortunately and unfortunately, we have the amazing world of social, And with that comes a lot of self-doubt, because all you need to do is scroll down your Instagram and you see 100 images of people doing these amazing things. And obviously, that's competition. That's in your head. You're like, oh my God. But, it doesn't, whenever you look at someone else's work and you're like, oh my God, they're amazing. It doesn't take away from your artwork. Someone else will still look at your artwork and be like, wow. And they'll really connect.
That is amazing. How shit am I? You know what I mean?
No, but it's like, it doesn't take away from your work. Someone else is being amazing. It's a different thing. So sometimes when you compare, just take a step back and just allow it, and also know that everyone goes through it. Like a lot of my mates who are also amazing illustrators and artists, we all have the same thoughts, and we all talk to each other and we're like, oh my God, I had a really shit day today. But yeah, everyone goes for it. So
Angie is asking, how do you avoid being copied by others while sharing your work? Do you copyright?
No, do you know what? It's a really funny one, because it's happened quite a lot, and I think when it's a really tough one, because I absolutely hate call out culture. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. But it is frustrating for a lot of people when this is your style, and then someone kind of catches on and they'll just all of a sudden start doing that. But I think if you just stick to doing your thing, there's millions and millions, tens of millions and billions of people in the world. If you're focusing on one person that's maybe doing an illustration very similar to yours, don't be focusing on that. There's millions of people. I mean, just focus on doing your own work. And I think that's the most important thing, is just making sure that you're doing work that is coming from a really, really personal place. Like, I know my work is, hugely inspired by, Greek mythology and pottery and Matisse and all of these things, and they're my references. And I think if you're sticking to what your references are, and that's it. I think sometimes, though, yes, a lot of people can kind of start by looking at other illustrators, which I think is probably not the best way to start if you're trying to find your style. It's good to look at, inspiration and that, but I think finding raw research, like looking at old books and old, my go-to also is the old Olympic memorabilia. I'm obsessed with Olympic memorabilia. I'm just obsessed with it. So yeah, I think, I don't know if that answered the question either.
Many people, still think, unfortunately, that oversharing is almost giving away your art. Of course, it happens that suddenly you see, somebody printed a T-shirt with your art or is selling it in some Etsy shop or stuff like that, and that's annoying.
But also, like, that's life, and that's that. Unfortunately, that's the world we're living in. Again, fortunately and unfortunately, social media is a platform that's opened up a whole new world for all of us. And with that, you're going to get a few people that are going to take your style and copy it. And but I genuinely do believe, if you're doing something that is your own, and is you're working hard and people can see it's genuine and it's coming from a genuine place, I think you'll be okay. But you will get people copycat, and that's just unfortunately the nature of the beast when you're on social media. But then again, how do you get work if you don't share your work? you know, you could definitely not share your work and not have it copied, but then you won't
then
get work.
Nobody would know about it. You would have to do
anyway.
it like in the old days with your portfolio, walk around the city and go from agency to agency.
You could definitely live that way. But I don't, and that's totally cool if you want to live like that. But I mean, it's depends.
And I know that you also have your store, right? Because because this is something that, you know, that, and that also, like, I would like also to know from the community, like, if you have stores, if you have Etsy's, if you have what is it called, Patreons and things like that, you know, always make sure to also share them here in the chat, so that, you know, we can have a look at it, and maybe, you know, from the community to the community, we can support each other during these difficult days where, you know, of course, work is a little bit less, we can't go around, and you know, we all need support. And what do you sell, Kelly?
I sell, when I first put a shop up, probably like 2 years ago, I always get this question of like, oh, I don't know how to start selling my pieces. I don't know if anyone would ever buy it. The best thing about having your own website or your own store is that it literally doesn't matter if you don't sell anything. Just put it up and see and test it out. So I tested it. I put my first print up, and I had it on the store, and I think literally took like a month to even sell one thing. But then over time, like, I started sharing more, that I was like releasing these prints, and now I've got, you know, I do a store with, you know, screen prints, limited editions, zines. I've just done a mini artist on board badge because the TFL tube badges are really ugly, so I did my own. And I think it's just about, you know, having the time to kind of put a bit of time aside, and, you know, getting prints up. And also now with things like, I did a workshop last year sometime with Everpress. I don't know if you know Everpress. They're a t-shirt company. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know about this, like everyone being able to upload their artwork onto a t-shirt. But because I've come from apparel and been like, oh, but actually,
oh no, that can't be automated.
But actually, in terms of like this kind of the idea of sustainability and not holding stock and making more than you need, actually from that side of things was really exciting. I just did this one recently for Valentine's Day, but that was really good because that kind of, you know, people can buy as and when, and they'll only print what you what you have, how many pieces people have bought. So that, you know, you can do things like that. And in this workshop that we did, a lot of the students, I think we had 30 students, and we built a whole page for them on Everpress, and they all designed their own t-shirt. And so many of them were like, no one's ever going to buy this. Like, and I was like, you'll be surprised. Like, just try it. Like, what's the point in not trying? Just put it up and see. It doesn't matter if you don't sell any, like, who cares? And literally, I think like 10 of them went through to print, and they sold, like, and I got messages from them being like, oh my God, I can't believe it sold. I was like, of course it did. Like, people like it. People will, you know, just because you may not be like a big shot at the moment doesn't mean people aren't going to like your artwork. So yeah, always just start with, if you're intimidated, because I know it can be intimidating doing a store, but if you are, just start with one piece, just start with one print and go from there. It doesn't need to be this intimidating, overpowering thing. Yeah,
and like always, also one very important key factor is also to drive traffic to the store, to have this whole system of social media and all these things need to be thought out and linked together somehow. Otherwise, you know, like, I would never find the store if I didn't, you know, if I weren't following you on Instagram, or like then linking back to your homepage and like telling the story of Kelly Anna. And this is part of it. And I love it because this sort of stuff gives you this thing that everybody needs so much right now, which is passive income, right? From things that have been done in the past and that, you know, can help you, you know, get over these difficult times, like now, for example.
Yeah, it's important. And especially now, like people are, especially in the moment we are now, people are a lot more willing to kind of support smaller businesses, which is really nice. But yeah, I've also got a colouring page that I've done. If anyone wants to download it, it's free. It's just, I've had quite a lot of downloads. So yeah, if you want something to colour in.
Nice.
There's a little page there. And also I've just released the poster zine with People of Print, which has got an interview with me in there as well. So, and it's I think it's like an A1 fold out poster, which is quite fun.
Yeah.
But I think if you buy it now, I don't know if they're still doing this, but I think it's buy one, get one free.
Oh.
So you can have two.
So you can hang one up and have one folded.
Exactly. Yeah.
We had a question earlier, but I can't find it anymore. But it was someone asking if you can give them tips for their application. He or she wanted to apply at the animation studio in London for an internship.
Tips to apply. I guess having some, I know this sounds really obvious, but just having some examples of your own work, and then honestly, probably just the way I always did it when I went to work with someone was literally just to send an email and then maybe follow up with like a call. But now I think even if they're on Instagram, like a lot of the time, a lot of the brands and clients I've worked with have actually contacted me through Instagram. A lot of my work hasn't even come from an email, it's come from a DM on Instagram. So maybe it's even about you know, making sure you're following their social and DMing them as well and being like, hey, I've been following the work that your studio does, blah, 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 and just kind of talking to them more casually like that is always a good way, I think.
And also on one thing that I can talk about is that on Behance now we have the jobs section, basically, you know, creative jobs. And I think during this time, it's, looking for a designer, you know, post a job, you can post jobs there. You can find, you know, opportunities for jobs. And Behance is really a really cool place where, you know, where agencies and you know, creative spaces actually find talent, because it's, you know, you can really filter through it and find the exact talent that you need. And like Kelly Anna just said, like, it's super important to focus on the things, you know, that you're good at, and, you know, don't try to be the one, like, you know, maybe 10 years ago we had this description that everybody needed to be a Renaissance designer, you know, like know everything from photography to web design to print design to this and that, and like know everything. Right now, it's not the case anymore. Right now, you have to be good at one specific thing, the thing that makes you tick, that makes you happy. Just focus on that one thing, because, you know, there's opportunities out there just for that one thing that you want to do, and people will find you if you're good at it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think that's goes back to that thing of like of timing as well. Like, I think with the world as it is today, everyone wants to do everything yesterday and they want to quickly become something, but actually you're best now getting your head down, you know, even if it takes you a couple of years, just hone in on your craft, because that is what will get you the work in the end, for sure.
Kelly Anna, one last thought for our community. How do you keep creative in these lockdown times?
Just keep sketching and finding bits of wood to paint onto. I've run out of things to paint in my house. So I'm going to have to try and order.
Yeah, I still see white walls behind you.
I know.
Just saying.
I know. I don't think my partner. We've literally like, I don't know if we've painted little strips. We've painted window sills. Yeah, I'm going a bit mad, but yeah, I think just keep sketching, but also don't pressure yourself to do something every day. Like you'll fall into a spiral of self-doubt that you're not creating all the time. If like one day you feel like creating, do it. If another day you don't, just go and watch some Netflix.
Yeah, that's
it's
important
fine.
too. Just to switch off. Yeah.
Switch off. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Kelly Anna, thank you so much for your time today. That was awesome. An awesome insight into your, your career path, how you started, where you came from, and where you're at now. And also, all these little tips and tricks that you left along the way, super, super useful. And I think the community really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. Great live again from Jackie. Thank you. Great story from Richard. Hannah made, I don't know what she wrote, maybe an emoji that didn't come through, but thank you. Okay, another inspiring chat. Yeah, so like I said, we're live here every day of the week, and that includes Friday and next Monday as well. We're going to be streaming, even though I think it's a bank holiday, but we will be here together with you, the community, and again with UK artists from these Adobe Live from the sofa sessions that we've started 2 weeks ago. And if you want to watch the replays, just scroll down on Behance and you can see all of the replays. And this hurts myself as a graphic designer. I had to put the little Union Jack on the like little icon. Like I had to put the little flag there just to make them different from the rest of the streams. I hate putting little flags. I think it's so. How did you say, Kelly? Before it was cliche. Yeah, there we go. Very cliche.
Yeah.
And of course, thank you, Stephanie, for keeping an eye on the chat, and thank you, Tim, for being here in the background, like maneuvering all of the screens and all of that. There is quite a few people working on that, and of course, thank you, Kelly Anna, for your time. It was awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening,
Stephanie. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the stream. Thanks for joining in, and thanks, Kelly. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
You too.
All right. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.